Hey, it's BJ, Very Basic Bible, coming to you live from the Very Basic Bible headquarters, the apartments that I rent out that just got bought by somebody else, meaning our rent might go up, but hey, moving out in like a year or two. I don't know. Anyway, Very Basic Bible headquarters is you. That's right. You can do Very Basic Bible yourself with the free at-home baby Bible kit. Here we go. We're gonna look at we're going to look at something. I got in a Bible study last week. We're in an archaeology study, and I said we're talking about Jesus and how he died, and I said it was a Passover, obviously, and the guy was like, "Well, he would." So I said that I said in the Bible study, like he died on Passover. That's when Jesus died. They're asking, "Is it a Passover meal? Is it this? Is it that?" And it's Passover, and I said, "Well, you look at the Bible, you look at the Gospels, Passover." They're like, okay, and then another guy said, "Well, I know he rose on the Feast of First Fruits." I didn't really know what to say because I know that's wrong, but I'm I'm 41. Everybody thinks I'm like 20 or something. Look at my hair; it's all gray. Yeah, at church they all think I'm young, and a lot of the people I'm in Bible study with are older people, elders. So I'm trying to be respectful, not trying to tell them I'm sorry, you're wrong. And I had several times already been like, well, actually, this is incorrect. Well, actually, this. Well, actually, that. And I just feel like I'm being rude. I was like, I wanted to say it, but we've been talking for like 10 minutes and we needed to move on. And so then the Bible study instructor was like, we'll move on. And I was like, all right, let's look at this. Feast of First Fruits. Share screen right there. And pow. Yeah, buddy. We were in one of our Bible study alongs 3 in a row, leaven this, leaven that. Then I didn't do a Bible video all last week. So now I'm like rusty on what I talked about. One second. All good. Heck yeah. I'm like rusty. But I know that the Passover is instituted Exodus 12, where we were talking about leaven. I know that. I know that it also talks about the Feast of Weeks and the Feast of First Fruits around this Passover. When other times it talks about the Passover. Other times it talks about the Passover. It talks about the Feast of First Fruits and the Feast of Ingathering. Excuse me. So the Passover / Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of First Fruits, which I think is also, I think the Feast of Weeks or the Feast of Booths. Then there's the Feast of Ingatherings or the Feast of Trumpets, I believe. Let's try and figure this stuff out. All right. First, though, let's go read what the Gospels say. We're always in the Old Testament, a very basic Bible. Let's go look at some New Testament stuff. All right. Exodus 12, New Testament. So Exodus is old, obviously. Just that's Leviticus, all the first 5. There's Chronicles, where all the kings are. Ecclesiastes is really sad. All messed up. The prophets. New Testament. Matthew, Mark. Okay. Matthew, we'll go 26 or 27. Let's see. Go. Go. Jesus before Pilate. Let's go back. Oh, nope. Hit the wrong button. Okay, let's go to chapter 25 then. Here. Well, that's trying to catch up. Matthew, Hebrews, it's above all this. It's a Roman there at Matthew 25. Matthew 27. Matthew 26. The plot to kill Jesus. So Matthew 25 is a little, let's go down Matthew 25. Okay, here, the parable, you see the parable. Then the kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins. The kingdom of heaven shall be like 10 virgins. Okay, the kingdom of heaven is like X, Y, so it's going to be a parable. The kingdom of heaven is like 10 virgins. Okay, let's go down. All right. He truly responded. Hey, parable of the talents. Oh, look, bridesmaids. They're still talking about the virgins for the wedding. Okay. The wedding dinner, the remaining virgins. So, okay, let's keep going down. Now, you're like BJ, in very basic Bible, you stop and explain everything. Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out a very specific question here. When the heck is the Feast of First Fruits? Is it 99% sure it's Pentecost? I'm like 99.100% sure. We're just making sure though. Phone's over there buzzing from a telemarketer. Call my work phone all hours of the night. I'm like, geez, telemarketers, man. All right, here's the second talent. The second parable. For it is as if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves. Look at this over here in the New King James. They add in italics, for the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling. Because look in here, the Berean Study Bible, for it is just like a man going on a journey. For it is as if a man going on a journey. Oh, look, the NIRV. Here is what the kingdom of heaven will be like. A man was going on a journey. The WEB for it. But then the ERV, easy to read version, God's kingdom will also be like a man. It'll also, because of 10 virgins and the wedding party and all that. Okay. So let's get past these parables. Well done, good and faithful servant. Okay. The king leaves money with his servants, but his Lord, the king, said to him, you evil and lazy servant. Yikes. That's no good. All right. Judgment. Okay. But when the Son of Man, okay. So now he's done with the parables. We're trying to figure out though. Oh, sheep and the goat judgment. So they're not talking about Jesus' crucifixion just yet. Okay. Separates the sheep from the goat. So he's still giving a parable. My cat's over there. What are you doing, cat? Over there digging in my shoes. That's smelly. Okay. For I was hungry and you gave me to eat. Well, y'all remember, some of y'all might remember that. Some of y'all might be like, DJ, tell us about it. Trying to go find something specific. Go a little further down. I was hungry. You did not give me something to eat. And that's why you're going to be thrown into the eternal fire, eternal life. Okay. Eternal punishment. Next chapter. Okay. Watch it. Yeah, no, you already saw it on the other tab. BSB, Berean Study about when Jesus had finished saying all these things about the parables, the three parables, the 10 virgins, the talents and the servants, the virgins and a wedding party and oil and stuff, the servants and the talents and the master who goes on a long journey, and then the sheep and the goats. When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he told his disciples, you know that the Passover is 2 days away. Now, if we remember correctly, let's go search real quick. Exodus 12. Passover lamb. This month shall be the beginning of the month for you. It is to be the first month of the year for you. I say if we remember, because if you watched all the 11 videos, there are 3 of them. I wanted to do at least one more. 3, at least one more. And 3, at least 4 more. There's 7 videos on 11, I guess. All right. It is the first month for you. Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th of this month, they are each one to take a lamb for themselves, according to the father's households. 1 lamb according to the household, a lamb for each household. Now, if the household is too small for a lamb, he and his neighbor nearest to his house are to take one according to the number of persons in them, in proportion. So either according to your household, or if your household is too small, in proportion to what each one should eat, you're to divide the lamb, because you can't leave any of the meat, any of it till morning. Now look, on the 10th day, you're going to do this. You're going to find this lamb. You're going to get with your neighbors, possibly. The lamb shall be unblemished and 1 year old. You might take it from the sheep or from the goats. Okay. You're doing all this stuff. Oh, look, you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. All right. So this month shall be the beginning of months for you. What month is it? What is this? Here it is. One more plague I will bring on Pharaoh and on Egypt. Now the Lord said to Moses, one more plague. He had already brought 9. We're in chapter 11 now. One more plague. Now, am I saying the Passover is the plague? No. Watch this. Passover is the way to not die in the plague. So God's saying, hey, last plague, I will bring on Pharaoh in Egypt. After that, he will let you go from here. When he lets you go, he will assuredly drive you out from here completely. You're leaving. Gone. Go. Pharaoh is going to tell you to leave. You were slaves in bondage in Egypt. Right? There's Adam and Eve. They had sons, Cain and Abel. They built some people built a tower. Oh, there's Noah's Ark somewhere in there. Some people built a tower. Then you got Abraham. You got Isaac. You got Jacob. You got tons of sons of Jacob. Joseph, one of his sons, goes down to Egypt. All the Israelites follow him down to Egypt. Sweet. Then they get put in slavery. But we're here. We're here. One more plague I will bring on Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that, he will let you go from here. All the people. He's going to let Jacob's sons. Jacob was renamed Israel. The nation. Jacob had a bunch of kids. All those kids had kids and had more kids and had more kids. Eventually, they formed a nation, and they called the nation Israel after Jacob. Pretty cool. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Okay. Speak now so the people hear that each man is to ask his neighbor and each woman of her neighbor articles of silver and gold, and the close parentheses, and the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. So I guess so they could get silver and gold from their neighbors, but we're not talking about that. My cat is in his litter box, taking a pee, staring at me. It's weird. I can barely oh, there he is. Oh, quit that, beat. You're a gross beat. Whatever. I teach children's church, and I love picking on the 4th and 5th graders. I'm essentially in junior high. Okay, here we go. One more plague. Last plague. Okay. Then Pharaoh will assuredly drive you out from here completely. You're gone. Moses told the people, this is what the Lord says, about midnight, I'm going out in the midst of Egypt. All the firstborn of the land of Egypt shall die. About midnight. This night, midnight. Lord's going to come through and kill all the firstborn of Egypt. Yikes. No good. Okay, here we go. Chapter 12. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, this month, which month is it? Things in the Bible aren't always in chronological order. Okay, sometimes they skip around, but this is in order. Okay. God's going to come through at night, that night, kill all the firstborn of Egypt. Look at this. Verse 12. So you got your lamb up here. You're going to slaughter it at twilight, not at midnight. You're going to swallow it. They shall take some blood and put it on the 2 doorposts. Why are they doing this? They're taking a sheep or a goat that's unblemished. They got to do it on the 10th day. Okay. The 10th day. Why the 10th day? You know? You got to do it all just perfect. Got to take some blood and put it on a doorpost. What's this ritual for? God's trying to paint pictures, probably, with the blood on the doorpost. That's not what I mean. For God's probably giving it some kind of object lesson, right? All right, here we go. You shall not leave any of it till morning. So eat it all, roast it with fire. I mean, all these regulations for this. But what's the point in it? What's the point in all this? Verse 12. For I will go through the land of Egypt on that night and fatally strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the human firstborn to animals. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live. Remember, you're going to wipe blood on the doorpost. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will come upon you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. Passover, because God passed them over. And look at that. So this says, this month shall be the beginning of months for you. Then on the 10th of this month. So did he mean that very day? Maybe when God said this month, maybe there was already a month in Egypt. Maybe they're already, and God's saying, hey, this month. But if he said on the 10th of this month, and the 10th had already passed, let's say it was like the 25th of the month. Okay, because I think they had about 30 days, like we do. Okay, say they're in Egypt, they're in some Egyptian month on the Egyptian calendar, and it's the 25th. And God says, hey, this month is going to be the beginning month. Okay, so on the 10th day of this month, you're gonna put Passover blood. God, it's the 25th day already. It'd be no good. God's going to pass over, and they didn't wait for a whole year until the month came back around so they could wait 10 days to do that. God had already told them in chapter 11 that night. You see, my thinking's kind of weird here. So this month, the first month, on the 10th day, that's the important thing. Okay. Where was that over here? You know that the Passover is 2 days away. So it's the first month, the 10th of the month. So Jesus says the Passover is 2 days away. So there are 8 days into that month. I forget what the month is called. There are 8 days into the month. Okay, Jesus and his disciples here, after Moses got over 1,000 years before Jesus. They're still doing the same rituals, though. That's longevity for you. In the 70s, they wore bell bottoms. Today, nobody wears bell bottoms. That ain't even 100 years. Over 1,000 years, these people are still, the Passover is 2 days away, still doing it. Is it exactly the same? Maybe. Maybe not. They do have the books. They do have the Old Testament on scrolls that they get read to in synagogues, so they probably follow it pretty closely. But they also add a lot of tradition to things sometimes. But it's the Passover. Still the Passover. Okay. At that time, the chief priests and elders of the people assembled in the courtyard of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas. And they, who is that? The chief priests and the elders. They conspired to arrest Jesus covertly and kill him. But not during the feast. Ding, 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 ding. Not. Look over here. ERV. Oh, my face got a little bitty. ERV. They said, we cannot arrest Jesus during Passover. The ERV, the easy to read version, trying to help us out, trying to let us know during the Passover, which is Matthew 26. Okay, look at this. Let's see. After 2 days, the Passover is coming. The Son of Man is to be handed over for crucifixion. At that time, close parentheses. At that time, the chief priests and the elders of the people were gathered together in the courtyard of the high priest named Caiaphas. So while Jesus is talking to his disciples, hey, I'm going to get killed, I'm telling you parables, verse 1, hey, don't forget, 2 days of Passover, they're going to hand me over. Around that time, priests and the elders are plotting stuff, right? Plotted together to arrest Jesus covertly and kill him. But they were saying, not during the festival. Let's go to, here's a Catholic one, New American Bible Revised Edition. Oh, that's right. Not during the festival. NLT, Passover. It lets us know it's a Passover. Okay, so we know Jesus is crucified on the Passover and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified. That might mean after the Passover, because look, they said not during the feast of the Passover. Let's keep reading. Now, while Jesus was in Bethany at the house of Simon the leper, I'm going to read kind of quickly past the stuff that Doesn't matter for our study here. A woman came to him with alabaster jar of expensive perfumed oil. She poured it on his head, and he was at a table. Decide why this waste. It could have been sold at a high price, given to the poor. You will not always have me. When she poured this, she poured for my burial. Yeah. Okay. Then one of the 12, the one named Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests. Remember the chief priests plotting to kill Jesus, and said, "What will you give me to betray him?" I don't know what it sounded like. It probably, hey, he might have already been feeling remorse. What will you give me to betray Jesus into your hands? So they set out 30 silver coins for him. From that time on, Judas began looking for an opportunity to betray Jesus. Judas is like, I'll betray him. $30, sure, or 30 pieces of coin. The Passover. Preparations for the Passover. The Passover with the disciples. Now, on the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying, "Where will you have us prepare for you to eat the Passover?" Okay, look at that. I think this is settled. The Passover. He dies at least around the time of the Passover. Okay, at least around it. The guy in my Bible study last week, nice guy, wonderful guy, loved Jesus. But he rose on the Feast of First Fruits. I was like, it's not entirely true. My cat just hopped in my lap. That happens during Bible study sometimes. Like, it's not entirely true. I want to tell you, but I've been like contradicting. It's hard whenever you're like, actually, that Bible fact is not correct. Actually, that was not correct. Actually, it's more like this. Actually, that's not good. Because then you start feeling rude, and people might start getting annoyed. And oh man, I wish instead they'd just be like, BJ, what do you think? Not because I'm smart, because then I don't feel rude. I'm like, if you really want to know, I didn't want to like impinge my, and I know I might say, I don't know. Anyway, Passover, Jesus on the Passover. Look at this. In your house, I shall celebrate the Passover with my disciples. Right here. Got to celebrate the Passover. That was a loud truck outside. The disciples then did as Jesus had ordered and prepared the Passover. The betrayer, when it was evening, he reclined at the table with the 12. Is that during the Passover? It just says when it was evening. This does say 2 days of Passover is coming. To my knowledge, the Feast of Unleavened Bread is a week. Then there's a Passover in the middle of it, then a second week. So 2 days would be the 8th day. Wait, a week, then the festival, then a week. That would be, no. You shall keep the lamb. You shall keep it, the goat or the sheep, until the 14th day. Okay. We're going to look. Feast of Unleavened Bread. Okay. Now, this day, the Passover day, or the day that God is telling Moses and Aaron this stuff. Because look right here. Now, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt. The Lord said to them, they're still in Egypt. Now, this day, the Passover or the day God's telling them, okay. This day shall be a memorial to you. You shall celebrate it as a feast to the Lord. Throughout your generations, you are to celebrate it as a permanent ordinance. For 7 days, you shall eat unleavened bread. But on the first day, you shall remove dough with yeast from your houses. Unleavened means without yeast, without leaven. Unyeasted bread, unleavened bread. So for 7 days, you're going to eat unleavened bread. But when do you remove the leaven? On the first day. Shall remove dough with yeast from your houses. For whoever eats anything with yeast from the first day until the 7th day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. God's not playing around with this. I'm like, you better do what I say. And on this first day, you shall have a holy assembly, and another holy assembly on the 7th day. No work shall be done on them except for what must be eaten by every person. That alone may be prepared by you. So you can do work to fix the food, but don't do other work. It's supposed to be a party. Let's have a party. You shall also keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread, for on this very day I brought your multitudes out of the land of Egypt. So on the day, the Passover, Does he mean the day of the Passover is the day of unleavened bread? It does say don't eat for 7 days, leaven, you know. So is the whole time the Passover? I mean, the unleavened bread, or just the day of the Passover unleavened bread? The word day might be less 24 hours, might be, or at this time, I brought you out. Very possible. Okay, you shall keep this day throughout your generations as a permanent ordinance. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. There we go. So the first month, okay, you're going to wait 10 days. You're going to get your lamb, your goat or your sheep. It's got to be unblemished. You're going to prepare it and such. Okay, let's see. You're going to prepare it and such, right? Yeah. Then, so it's not a week and then the Passover and then a week. It's the Passover starts the festival of unleavened bread. Kind of what it sounds like. Because on the 14th day, you shall keep it keep the lamb, keep the goat or the sheep, the baby goat, the baby sheep, until the 14th day of the same month. Then the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel to slaughter at twilight and to wipe your blood on the doorpost. And then you're going to eat it that same night. They don't just kill to kill, obviously. You know. On the first day of the 7 days, get rid of all the yeast. That would actually make sense because it's on that day they're not supposed to be eating yeast. You shall not leave any of the goat or the sheep until morning. Back up here where we're talking about putting the blood on the doorpost, the same night you shall eat it roasted with fire. Okay, don't leave any of it till morning. Whatever is left until morning you shall burn with fire. Now you shall eat it in this way, with your garment belted around your waist, your sandals on your feet, your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in a hurry. It is the Lord's Passover. I want you to eat in a hurry. That's why you get rid of the yeast. I think yeast takes time to rise, bread. Instead, just fix flat bread. All right. On the first day, you shall have a holy assembly and another holy assembly on the 7th day. So starting the 14th day of the first month, a holy assembly on the 1st and on the 7th day. No work shall be done on them except for what must be eaten by every person. That alone may be prepared. You shall also keep the feast of unleavened bread. For on this very day I brought your multitudes out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall keep this day throughout your generation of the permanent ordinance. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. 7 days there shall be no dough found within your houses, for whoever eats anything with yeast, that no dough with yeast. Whoever eats with yeast, that person shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he is a stranger or a native of the land. You shall not eat anything with yeast. In all your dwellings you shall eat unleavened bread. Okay. It's not entirely clear. Do they, on the 14th day is the day they slaughter the lamb. Okay. Let me see. For 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. For 7 days. The first month, right? The first month of their whatever. Be eating bread on for 7 days. The first day you shall have a holy assembly, another holy assembly on the 7th day. Okay. So you got a whole week of eating bread without yeast. Okay. You shall also keep the feast of unleavened bread. So where's the Passover? Bread. So on this day, I brought you your multitudes out of Egypt. 1 second. Control F. Passover. And then say it up here. So when's the day they eat the goat? It doesn't tell us. God does tell them on the 14th day, you're going to eat the goat. Right? So not entirely sure on this. But what I wanted to do was say, when is the Feast of First Fruits? We know Jesus. Sorry. We know Jesus died on the Passover. Okay. So if the first fruits is 3 days later, then we'll know. Okay, then we'll know. Why? Because Jesus died and he rose in 3 days. He died on Friday and rose on a Sunday. Okay, what am I looking for here? All right. Jesus was in Bethania or Bethany, house of Simon the leper, woman. Oh, yeah, we read all that. When you will betray me. This he answered, the Son of Man goes as written, betrayed. You know, when Judas betrayed him while they were eating. They're eating the Passover. Okay. Well, it does say that night up here. Disciples Passover meal. When it was evening, he took his place with the 12. Okay. So we know Jesus dies on the Passover. We want to find out when is the festival of first fruits. So instead of looking at these details, okay, instead of keeping on looking at these details, getting very warm for some reason. 1 second, guys. I'm going to pause for a minute. Be right back. Hey, I'm back. Okay. Turn on my AC, close some of the vents. A vent blowing right. For some reason, I'm getting sweaty. It's weird. Been winter for like months. Imagine that. So, it doesn't go on for months? The Passover. Okay, here we go. Feast of Unleavened Bread. All right, so what are we going to search for now? Okay, Ordinance of the Passover. Okay, they talk about it a little bit more. First fruit. Before I run out of time, since I just want to I want to explain everything. Everything I want to explain. Ow. I hit my, there's a thing over, ow. All right. Okay. Exodus 23:16. We were at Exodus 12. Now, 23:16. You shall keep the feast of the harvest of the first fruits. Exodus 23:16. 3 national feasts. 3 times a year you shall celebrate a feast to me. You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. For 7 days you are to eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you, at the appointed time in the month of Abib. Okay, so in Abib. So it's Abib. It's the first month, okay? Was that an Egyptian month? Maybe. Maybe God made up a whole new name. I don't know Egyptology. I don't know. I just know the Hebrews called their first month Abib. Abib. Abib sounds more Middle Eastern. Okay. For in that month he came out of Egypt, and no one is to appear before me empty-handed. So when you come to the feast, have your lamb. Have something to offer to God. Okay. Also, verse 16. You shall keep the feast of the harvest of the first fruits of your labors from what you sow in the field. Labors from what you sow in the field. Sowing is putting seed down. Dig little trenches, get all the rocks out, till the soil, you break it up. You try to make the soil all broken and stuff. Try to get it so stuff can grow in it. So it's not all hard. You need to be able to water it. Put seed in it. You're sowing. S-O-W. Not sewing like with a needle and a thread. But it's not like that. You're out in the hot sun instead, where you out my toe, you stump your toe. You're sowing seed. Labors from what you sow in the field. Labors. First fruits of your labors. So you're working in the field. Labor. You're working. Shall keep the feast of harvest. You're harvesting. You're bringing in. What are you harvesting? The first fruits. The first vegetables that come in. If they had barley and they had lentils, I've heard in the Bible, they had wheat. Okay. They call it fruits. Are those fruits? We don't think of that. What's the fruit? Apple, orange, banana, pear, kumquat, papaya, dragon fruit, other strange plantain, other strange stuff. But hey, they call it, for some reason, they call it first fruits, even though we call it maybe first wheat or something, first, are they made of starch? Is wheat and barley and stuff made of starch? I don't know. First farmer harvest. Okay. So whenever they first go into the field, they go into the field. Okay, they're laborers. They sow seed. They're sowing seed in the field. That's their labors. They're working hard. You wait around, and eventually something grows. It's the harvest time. It's growing. Hey, it's grown. Let's go harvest it and bring it in. The first time you bring in first fruits. Right? Yep. God always wants a portion of your first fruits. He wants you to trust him. Not like, I'll eat everything, then I give you the leftovers, God. You know, he wants to show, he wants you to show him you trust him. You can give him first, then go to yours. You love him so much, it's a basic thing in life, right? Don't be selfish. Go above and beyond. Also, the Feast of Ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in the first fruit of your labors from the field. So, Feast of Ingathering, a second time, they go to harvest. So there's also the first fruits from the second harvest, which is called ingathering. So 3 feasts. 1, the time they left Egypt, Passover, unleavened bread. 2, whenever they get the very first fruits the very first time, Feast of First Fruits. 3, when they get the second crops, the first fruits of the second crops, Feast of Ingathering. 3 times a year, all your males shall appear before the Lord. All your males. Females don't got to go. They can if they want. I think they can. I'm pretty sure if they wanted to, they could, but probably stay at home with the kids, or, make sure nobody, if all the men go and the women stay back and take care of the house, I guess, it's a traditional society. What are we going to say? Okay. Let's look at this. Feast of First Fruits. Feast of First Fruits. Okay. 23:16, 23:19. You shall bring the choice first fruits of your soil in the house of your Lord your God. So that's describing from 23:16, harvest of the first fruits of your labors from what you sow in the field. Okay. The first wheat or barley or whatever that you bring in, you worked at it. You sowed seed, it grew. The first time you bring it in, verse 19, you shall bring the choice first fruits, the good ones. Why would you give something crappy to God? Thank you for all this, God. Here's junk. Come on, All right, 34:22, full chapter. We're just trying to figure out how far away unleavened bread is in Passover from first fruits. Now, the Lord said, oh, wait. Did I miss the covenant renewed? The Lord passed in front of him. The Lord compassionate and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in faithfulness and truth, who keeps faithfulness and for thousands, who forgives wrongdoing, violation of his law and sin. Yet he will by no means leave the guilty unpunished, inflicting the punishment of fathers on the children and on the grandchildren to the 3rd and the 4th generations. God loves infinitely. But when he punishes it, it's for a time. So that's good. I see it. I cast my eyes down the page and I found it. Right here. See, the covenant renewed, but there's no other title headings, right? There's no other titles. You shall keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread. For 7 days you are to eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you at the appointed time in the month of Abib. For in the month of Abib you came out of Egypt. Looking for first fruits. Firstborn of the womb belongs to me, and all your lives and your male livestock, the firstborn from cattle and sheep. You shall redeem with a lamb, the firstborn from a donkey. I'll take your cattle and your sheep. Hey, I'll even take your firstborn son. Not that donkey. And if you do not redeem it, you shall break the donkey's neck. You shall redeem all the firstborn of your sons. None are to appear before me empty-handed. To redeem is to, so God is allowed the first fruits. the first fruits. Hey, God loved the first fruits, even your very first kid. And that create your first child. You know, I don't have any children. I am the second child. My older brother was God's. As far as the Israelite law goes, he was God's. But you shall redeem all the firstborn of your sons. Okay. Instead, God says, hey, your son is mine. And you go, God, I'm going to give you this donkey, or the donkey, not the donkey. Don't give the donkey. If you don't redeem the donkey, you shall break his neck. You shall redeem with a lamb. Okay. The firstborn from a donkey. And you shall redeem the firstborn of your sons. So instead of giving the donkey to God, redeem it with a lamb. Instead of giving your son, you probably give him a lamb too. Something like that. Buying your son back, redeeming him. All right. Yeah. Redemption. Yeah. That's a New Testament thing too. You thought it was New Testament theological talk. Here we go. You know, we were lost and Jesus redeemed us. Yeah. Okay, you shall work for 6 days, but on the 7th day you shall rest, even during the... Why did I go through all this? I am supposed to be finding the Feast of First Fruits. Okay, right here. You shall bring the very first of the first fruits of your soil into the house of the Lord your God. I missed one up here. You shall work 6 days, but on the 7th day you shall rest. Even during plowing time and harvest, you should still rest. Okay, the 7th day you rest, period. And you shall celebrate the Feast of Weeks. That is the first fruits of the wheat harvest. The Feast of Weeks, the first fruits of the wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at the turn of the year. Remember in the two first fruits. That's been working pretty well for us. Sometimes I'm not sure what to search for, right? All right, 23. Yep. Let's see. Full chapter, 23:16. It looks like it matches. Okay. 3 times a year you shall celebrate. You shall keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread. For 7 days you would eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you at the appointed time in the month of Abib. For in that month you came out of Egypt. Yep. And no one is to appear before me empty-handed. And no leaven. Okay. Also, you shall keep the Feast of Harvest of the first fruits of your labors from which you sow in the field. Over here. Work 6 days, celebrate the Feast of Weeks. That is the first fruits of the wheat harvest. Is that the same? Celebrate the Feast of Weeks. That is the first fruits of the wheat harvest. The first fruits of the wheat harvest is the celebration. You're celebrating because you get it, the wheat harvest. Of course, you give the first fruits to God. You offer them to God, I believe. But you're celebrating. You're like, thank you, Lord. You know, this is awesome. The Feast of Harvest of the first fruits of your labor from which you sow in the field. Also, the Feast of Ingathering at the end of the year when you gather in the fruit of your labors from the field. And over here, you shall celebrate this Feast of Weeks, that is the first fruits of the wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at the turn of the year. Okay, so over here we got unleavened bread, Feast of Harvest of the first fruits, Feast of Ingathering at the end of the year. Over here we got the 7-day Sabbath, the Feast of Weeks, that is first fruits of the wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at the turn of the year. 3 times a year, all your males are to appear before the Lord your God, the God of Israel. And over here, 3 times a year, all your males shall appear before the Lord your God. Pretty cool. I like it when they repeat stuff, because then it kind of confirms, okay, so this is talking about that. You can compare them, you know, and see different aspects of it. You can go, wait, is this talking about the same thing or not? Let's compare. We kind of compared. I think it is. Sometimes though it's confusing because you're like, I just read that. What am I doing? You know. All right. So here we go. Oh, right here. You shall bring the very first of the first fruits. So not just the first fruits. You're going to get the first fruits for the feast. Because you're going to get the first fruits, you have a feast. Because you have first fruits, you're having a feast because awesome. We got food. You know, we sowed, we were labored, We sowed seed. We trusted in God, and he gave us food. You shall bring the very first of the first fruits of your soil into the house of the Lord your God. Sweet. Awesome. Okay, we were talking about the Passover. Verse 25, you shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, nor is the sacrifice of the feast of the Passover to be left over until morning. And just in case you forgot, a few little details. Well, there's one little sentence there. I don't know. Did Moses write it down out of order? I don't know. Okay. Some people blasphemous. Moses can't write it down out of order. It's a joke. I don't know. All right. An offering of first fruits you shall bring to the Lord. But that's not the feast of first fruits, I don't think. Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land, which I am going to give you, and you gather its harvest, then you shall bring in the sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. When you very first go in the land, very first time in the land, but is that the feast of first fruits? I don't think so. Priest shall wave with the bread of the first fruits as a wave offering. In other words, you're giving them their first fruits. Are they is it the feast? Maybe, or maybe it's just anytime you go give them, you give them their first. You don't give God the leftovers, like I said. Okay. Numbers, the first right fruit of all of their land, which they shall bring the Lord everyone in your house. On the day of the first fruits, when you present a new grain offering to the Lord in your Feast of Weeks. 28, 26. Remember here, where was it at? No, this wasn't it. Go back. Right here. 34, 22. And you shall celebrate the Feast of Weeks. What's that? That is the first fruits of the wheat harvest and the Feast of Ingathering. So we know the Feast of Ingathering is at the end of the year or the turn of the year. But what's this Feast of Weeks? When does that fit in? Is that before the Feast of First Fruits? After the Feast of First Fruits? A minute ago, I talked about this whole thing. You shall celebrate the Feast of Weeks. That is the first fruits of the wheat harvest. That whole thing, I talked about it if it was the Feast of First Fruits. Feast of Wheat, Feast of First Fruits, Feast of Ingathering, Feast of this, Feast of that, First Fruits this, First Fruits. It's so confusing. Okay. Breathe. There. Uh-oh. What was it? 28. Let's see if I can just look with my eyes and just find it. Okay, I saw Twilight. One and the other, you shall offer it twice the other. So now they got more than one offering. No. Excuse me. Okay, the Lord's Passover shall be in the 14th day of the first month. Okay. On the 15th day of this month, there shall be a feast. Unleavened bread shall be eaten for 7 days. On the first day, there shall be a holy assembly. You shall do no laborious work. Speaking of laborious work, right? Don't be going out in the field and sowing stuff, right? Don't be going out in the field and breaking up the ground, throwing seed in the ground. Nope. Also, on the day of the first fruits, when you present a new grain offering to the Lord in your Feast of Weeks, you shall have a holy assembly. You shall do no laborious work, but you shall offer a burnt offering as a soothing aroma to the Lord, 2 bulls, 1 ram, and 7 male lambs 1 year old. And as their grain offering, fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for each bull. Add some oil for a bull. 2/10 of ephah of oil for the ram. 1/10 for each of the 7. That's a lot of oil. And a lot of rams and bulls. They're giving all this oil away. Also, a male goat to make atonement for you. Okay, the male goat makes atonement for you. Okay. Besides the continual burnt offering and its grain offering, you shall present them with their drink offering. They shall be with that. Man, it's like God's asking them for so much. Whew. Man, people are like, God was harsh to do X, Y, and Z. What about this? Man, me and God. Oh, but hey, must be a reason to it. They probably thought it was the coolest thing ever. They were probably like, hey, feast. Enjoy it. Did that help us know when the Feast of Weeks was? Or the Feast of First Fruits? Or we know that the Feast of first fruits and the Feast of Weeks are most likely the same thing. I'm going to type in Feast of Weeks. That is the first fruits of the wheat harvest and the Feast of Ingathering at the turn of the year. Okay, we read that, remember? Also on the day of the first fruits, when you present a new grain offering to the Lord in your Feast of Weeks, you shall have a holy assembly. Oh. 16:1, Feast of Passover, of weeks, and of booths. Let's see what this is. Oops, read full chapter. Okay. Let's read. 57 minutes. You got to go fast. Observe the month of Abib and celebrate the Passover to the Lord your God. For in the month of Abib, the Lord your God brought you out of Egypt by night. Yep, God killed all the babies overnight. Pharaoh was like, leave now, go. You shall sacrifice the Passover to the Lord your God from the flock and the herd. Probably, or the herd. You can do it from the flock, or you can do it from the herd. That's probably what it means. In the place where the Lord chooses to establish his name. Only do it there. You're going to do the Passover at that place. Okay. You shall not eat leavened bread with it. For 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread with it, the bread of affliction, for you came out of the land of Egypt in a hurry. Affliction, they were afflicted in Egypt. And it's leavened. You shall not eat leavened bread. You shall eat unleavened bread. Unleavened bread doesn't take a long time to cook, unlike leavened bread. So that you remember the day when you came out of the land of Egypt, all the days of your life. So why are they doing this silly? Why are they doing this seeming really strange ritual? You're killing a Passover lamb. You're wiping blood on a doorpost, blood on the doorpost. You're eating bread without leaven. You know what? What's the point in all this, God? So that you will remember the day when you came out of the land of Egypt, all the days of your life. Yeah. For 7 days, no leaven shall be seen with you in your entire territory, and none of the meat which you sacrificed on the evening of the first day shall be left overnight until the morning. No leaven, no leaven sacrifice until morning. You are not allowed to sacrifice the Passover in any of your towns, which the Lord your God is giving you, but only at the place where the Lord your God chooses to establish his name. Wait, how are they going to wipe blood on their doorposts? I guess that part's not, I guess once they get into the land and get established, Deuteronomy is talking about, hey guys, once you're in the land and established, while they're roaming around in the desert, they're in tents. They're setting up and taking down their tents as they go places, as God shows them, leads them around. They would all be in the same place. I'm not sure why I'm yawning so much. So they'd all be in the same place, but they'd be in their tents and they'd probably be able to put blood on their tent posts. Once they get into the land, God wants them to come to a central location, it seems. You're not allowed to sacrifice the Passover in any of your towns, which the Lord your God is giving you, but only at the place where the Lord your God chooses to establish his name. You shall sacrifice the Passover in the evening at sunset, at the time that you came out of Egypt. Only where the Lord God chooses to establish his name, you shall sacrifice it at evening and such. You shall cook it and eat it in a place where the Lord your God chooses, in the place where he chooses where you're going to eat it. In the morning, you are to return to your tents. For 6 days, you shall eat unleavened bread. And on the 7th day, there shall be a festive assembly to the Lord your God. You shall do no work on it. Okay. You shall count. Now, I saw a feast of first fruit somewhere in here, and I think this is it. You shall count 7 weeks for yourself. You shall begin to count the 7 weeks from the time you began to put the sickle to the standing grain. So from the time the sickle to the standing grain standing up, hey, you put a sickle to it, then you take it in. So you're harvesting 7 weeks from that first time you harvest. The first harvest sounds like Feast of First Fruits. Then You shall celebrate the Feast of Weeks to the Lord your God with a voluntary offering of your hand in a proportional amount. Feast of Weeks. Where is it at? You shall celebrate the Feast of Weeks. That is the first fruits of the wheat harvest. So it was called the first fruits earlier in Exodus, the Feast of First Fruits. Now he says the Feast of Weeks. That is the first fruits of the wheat harvest and the Feast of Ingathering at the turn of the year. I'm assuming the Feast of Weeks and the Feast of First Fruits are the same, since God says, do these three things: unleavened bread, first fruits, ingathering. Here, he talks about unleavened bread. Where does he talk about it? It's below. You have Passover right here. Passover. Then he talks about Feast of Weeks, then ingathering. Might not be, actually. Feast of Weeks might be different. Who knows? Because when you first put the sickle, you got your sickle. It's a long stick with a long metal thing at the end, and you slice the wheat with it. Okay? You know, farmers, they go out in these giant tractors and run over, and it picks up the wheat for them, right? You know, you see little old ladies in their yard, and they're like picking flowers, or they're picking vegetables. This is more how they did. They had grim reapers, a scythe, you know. Count 7 weeks for yourself. You shall begin to count 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle to the standing grain. Then you shall celebrate the Feast of Weeks to the Lord your God with a voluntary offering of your hand in a proportional amount, which you shall give to the Lord your God. You shall give just as the Lord your God blesses you. Only a proportional amount, only as much as God gives you. Give the first fruits. God's not saying I want all of it. He's saying, hey, I gave you this much, so just give me back some of it. You shall rejoice before the Lord your God, you, your son and daughter, your male and female slaves, and the Levite who is in your town, and the stranger, the orphan, and the widow who are in your midst, at the place where the Lord your God chooses to establish his name. You shall also remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and you shall be careful and comply with these statutes. Okay. Here's another one. You shall celebrate the Feast of Booths for 7 days when you have gathered in from your threshing floor and your wine vat. So is this another gathering? Is this the same gathering? When you have gathered in from the threshing floor and the wine vat. So up here, put the sickle to the, you go out and you harvest the first time, you count 7 weeks, Feast of First Fruits, Feast of Weeks, that is. 7 weeks, Feast of Weeks. That's the standing grain. Down here, Feast of Booths for 7 days when you have gathered in from your threshing floor and your wine vat. Okay. And you shall rejoice in the feast, you and your son and your daughter and your male and female slaves and the Levites. So everybody's going to join in the feast. Everybody. Even the stranger, the orphan, and the widow who are in your towns. For 7 days you shall celebrate a feast to the Lord your God, called the Feast of Booths, in the place which the Lord chooses, because the Lord your God will bless you in all you produce and in all the works of your hands, so that you will be altogether joyful. 3 times a year, your male shall appear before the Lord your God at the place which he chooses. Okay. The Feast of Unleavened Bread. The Feast of Weeks was called the Feast of First Fruits, and the Feast of Ingathering, the Feast of Booths. So the Feast of Ingathering is now called the Feast of Booths. Are they getting stuff mixed up, or they just got different names? I think they just got different names. And they are not to appear before the Lord empty-handed. Everyone shall give as he is able, in accordance with the blessing of the Lord, which your Lord, your God, which he gave you on this day, or which he has given to you. And down here is not it. I still don't know how far after the Passover is the Feast of First Fruits. Jesus is called our first fruits. Okay, he's the first fruits of those raised from the dead. The Feast of Weeks Let's try this. What I type in here, actually it's 34. Okay. And the Sabbath, new moon, during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Booths. Feast of Unleavened Bread, when Jesus died, Passover. Feast of Weeks, Feast of First Fruits. Feast of Booths, Feast of Ingathering. Excuse me. Here's what happens. Pentecost. Day of Pentecost. Because what I've been taught always is Pentecost. Pentecost is 40 days, okay? 40 days after Jesus ascended, okay? 7 weeks after you put, okay? 7 weeks later, after you first harvest, you get the Feast of Weeks. I've always heard that Pentecost is the Feast of Weeks, Pente meaning 50. But I'm looking in the Bible here and I'm noticing I don't think it actually says that. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying you probably have to go to outside sources. Let's search for some more stuff. In gathering, let's see where we find, just to make sure. Only 2, 23:16, 34:22, Exodus. We already read those, right? Yeah. Weeks. Not as much as I thought. You should celebrate the Feast of Weeks. That is the first fruits, okay? But you'll be unclean for 2 weeks, okay? Women are unclean when they have babies. You get this? Okay. Also, on the day of the first fruits, when you present your new grain offering to the Lord in your Feast of Weeks, you shall have a holy assembly. You should do no more. So we read that one, right? Yeah, there's the Deuteronomy ones we read. You shall celebrate the Feast of Weeks to the Lord your God. Yep. He did so. Oh, we read this one, right? Let's see. They did not say in their heart, let us now fear the Lord our God, who gives rain in its season. They didn't say that. Who gives rain in its season, both the autumn rain and the spring rain, who keeps us for us the appointed weeks of the harvest. Why wouldn't they say that? They didn't tell God, thank you, They probably attributed to somebody else. That's my guess, because in Jeremiah, God's pretty angry at the people. Daniel, that's a little confusing. Daniel. Oh, that's it. Daniel's a prophecy about something different. So, and Pentecost is only that one place. Let's go back. Matthew, Mark 14. Let's see. After 2 days, it was the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And the chief priest and the scribes sought how they might take him by trickery and put him to death. Remember that over here? She said, the Passover is after 2 days. You know that after 2 days, the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man is to be handed over for crucifixion. At that time, the chief priests and the elders of the people were gathered together in the courtyard of the high priest named Caiaphas, and they plotted together to arrest Jesus covertly and kill him. Gonna kill Jesus. Right here. How they might take him by trickery and put him to death. But they said, not during the feast, lest there be an uproar of the people. You don't want, while there's a feast, you kill somebody that's super duper popular, might be a riot or something. People might get mad. Hey, what are you doing? Don't kill him. Right here. Maybe a riot. That's a riot. Mark, Luke. Oh, go. Here we go. The plot to kill Jesus. Now the festival of unleavened bread, which is called the Passover, was near. The chief priests and the scribes were looking for a way to put Jesus to death, for they were afraid of the people. Looking for a way, like a secret way, probably. Then Satan entered into Judas, called Iscariot, who was one of the 12. Yikes. That's why Judas did what he did. He went away, they greatly passed, so he continued to betray. No crowd on the day, the unleavened bread, on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. So the Lord sent Peter and John, saying, "Go prepare away Passover." So it says, then came the day of Passover. Okay. The day of unleavened bread, on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. The day of unleavened bread, which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. So Jesus didn't die that day because he had a trial overnight. So they had a Passover lamb. They ate the Feast of Unleavened Bread. They probably killed a lamb. Yep. And Jesus died the next day. It wasn't during the feast. I'm going to go look at Acts. Okay. In the first book, Theophilus, I wrote about all that Jesus did and taught from the beginning. So Jesus died, then he rose until the day he was taken up into heaven after giving instructions to the Holy Spirit to the apostles whom he had chosen. After his suffering, he presented himself alive to them by many convincing proofs, appearing to them during 40 days and speaking about the kingdom of God. Some people will say 40 days minus the Sabbath days. They're trying to get to 50 because Pentecost, from what I've learned, is the 50th day. You count 7 weeks. 7 times 7 is 49. Then, boom, Feast of First Fruits, Feast of Weeks. There we go. So pretty sure that's what I've learned, but I don't seem to be able to find it in the Bible. I'm not saying that means it's wrong because it's not in the Bible, just we don't have that information. But we do know that for 40 days after he rose from the dead, he's speaking and talking to them. They head into the city, the upper room. One of them accompanied among us. Cast lots. Next chapter. Next chapter is when the day of Pentecost had come. Okay. When the day of Pentecost. What's Pentecost? Doesn't tell us. Somewhere it might. Only Acts, 2 in Acts and 1 in Corinthians. For he was hurrying, if it might be possible for him to be in Jerusalem the day of Pentecost. So he thought that'd be cool to be there. But that's all it tells us, I'll remain at Ephesus until Pentecost. It might, if we looked at the surrounding verses, it might say more, but this video is getting long, and the Remnant Radio is 6 in the start. Now I want to watch the Remnant Radio. Let's see. I will come to you after I go through Macedonia, for I am going through Macedonia. and perhaps I will stay with you or even spend the winter. Don't want to be sailing during the winter time, I guess. So you may send me on my way wherever I go, for I do not want to see you now just in passing, for I hope to remain with you for some time if the Lord permits. But I will remain in Ephesus until Pentecost. For a wide door for effective service has been opened to me, and there are many adversaries. So Paul is telling Paul, this is a letter from Paul to the Corinthians. Paul is telling them, I'm going to stay in Ephesus for now, to convert people. And, there's a lot of people against us. I need to stay here and protect the flock, until I'm going to do Pentecost. Well, guys, let's see. No. Stop share. There we go. Well, guys, didn't exactly figure everything out, but figured enough out. I think it's good. Yeah. All right. Let's pray real quick. Lord God, thank you for giving us whatever answers you want to give us. Thank you for giving us whatever information you want us to have. Thank you for loving us, sending your son to die for us, for being so good to us, Lord God. In your name we pray. Amen. See y'all on the next Very Basic Bible.